Joining me this morning is Linda Burney. She's Shadow Minister for Families and Social Services and also Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians. Good morning to you, Miss Burney.
Good morning, Brooke. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well this morning, doing much better than people with D-Day coming up tomorrow, and it's going to be tough to return to that lower amount of income per week.
It's going to be very difficult for people who are on JobSeeker and also for people on JobKeeper. That's being wound back as well. So today the government brings back the liquid assets test, which I guess we'll talk about. But come the end of this week, people who are on JobSeeker will have their coronavirus supplement halved. As you said, there'll be $300 less in people's bank accounts come the end of the week.
We've heard stories for weeks on end about farmers not having pickers, about abattoirs that can't find workers. We're hearing that Australia has a long way to go before unemployment benefits hinder people's motivation for work. That's what some people are saying, and others are saying, no, we're a nation of bludgers, and if you can sit on the sofa and, collect your money, you will, and not get a job. How do you balance the two? You need to give people enough to live on. These are very tough times we're in, but you also want to encourage people to try and support themselves as well. How do you manage that?
Well, that's a very complex question, but I don't accept the premise that people are, or we are a nation of bludgers, and people sit on the couch and just accept their money. I don't, and I have not met anyone that's unemployed that doesn't want a job. And at the moment, the fact is that between now and Christmas, there will be 400,000 people additional who are on JobSeeker who cannot get a job. What we do know, Brooke, is that in the city, for example, in Sydney, there is something like 12 people on JobSeeker for every one position. And when we get out to regional areas like yours, it goes up to 20, 23, 24, 25 people unemployed and one position. The idea that, that people are not taking jobs because the money's so good is just a fallacy. And I reject totally the notion that that's taking place.
Speaking to Linda Burney this morning, she's Shadow Minister for Families and Social Services, about the change to JobKeeper, JobSeeker. These changes coming into effect this week. Liquid assets. Now, if you could just explain that, how that impacts the benefits. Liquid assets, I assume, means savings or perhaps a redundancy payment, that sort of thing. They're all going to be means tested.
So, as of today, the government is bringing back the liquid assets wait period. What that really means is if you've got, like you said, a redundancy payment. If you've accessed your superannuation and that money is sitting in the bank, if, for example, you might have some shares or you might have lent some money to your children and you're waiting for it to be paid back, that's all considered a liquid asset. In other words, the easy way to think about it really is money that you've got in the bank. What the government is doing is saying that if you've got a certain amount of money in the bank, for example, if you're single and you've got over $11,000 in the bank, the government is saying you have to wait 13 weeks and use all that money up before you can access a social security payment. Labor is arguing that this is not the time to bring back that test. If people were fully employed, if coronavirus wasn't out there, maybe so, but the fact is that we are going to see, as I said, an additional 400,000 people on the unemployment queues. So it is not the time for the government to bring back a liquid asset waiting period of up to 13 weeks expecting people to run down every single cent they've got before they can access benefits.
What sway will you have with the government? You're calling for this change. You believe it's unfair. Do you think the government's made up its mind? There's no turning back at this point. They're worrying that they're going to bleed just so much money that Australia will never recover. What's the solution, though?
Well, the government is reintroducing this today, so clearly they haven't listened. But this is really going to create enormous hardship for potentially 400,000 people. I mean, people say, well, shouldn't people use their savings and not rely on the taxpayer? But the counter-argument to that is that if you have a tiny bit of money saved up and that an emergency happens, someone gets sick, your car blows up, your car needs new tyres, your fridge packs it in. That is the money that you rely on for emergencies, and for the government to expect people to use up all that money before they can access a JobSeeker is really a false economy.
Are we just likely to see people who have some money shifting it to their parents or their kids or something to avoid that?
Look, I don't think that will happen. We're talking about people who live on very small amounts of money, or people that have lost their jobs, found themselves unemployed, often for the first time ever, relying on, food hampers and so forth. They usually spend all their money in the economy and therefore keep people employed. So not only is there a human side of this, there's also an economic argument for the government not to bring this test back at this point in time.
We tend to get stuck on the economic arguments rather than the human side, and of course this isn't a business. The government's running these are taxes, and they're there to we pay our taxes to benefit the nation. It's all for the Commonwealth, but yes, it's certainly a worrying time for people on those allowances, and very difficult to wait 11 weeks, particularly coming up to Christmas, a very expensive time of year, and it's making it very tough for them. I thank you for your time this morning, Ms. Burney. Thank you.
Brooke.
Cheers.
Bye.
Linda Burney there, she's Shadow Minister for Families and Social Services. She is also Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australia.